At the time of this recording, there are currently 164 champions in League of Legends. However, knowing all of this, there is still a lot of room for League's roster of champions. Hello everyone, I'm Snowball, and today I'm going to be showing off some potential champion concepts that don't yet exist in League of Legends, but totally should. While Riot's overall character design has been solid, with some exceptions, I still think there's so much untapped potential. Starting us off with our first example, we need to go back in time. In 1903, Howard Pyle wrote Excalibur the Sword, a famous story that you've probably heard before about a sword stuck inside of a stone, and whichever warrior is able to pull it out is the rightful king of England. Now, hearing all of this, I don't mean to bait you into thinking this concept is about a warrior destined for greatness. This concept was created by Drifter Workshop, and it's a barbarian who attempted to lift the sword from the stone, but couldn't. However, because of how strong he is, he just decided to pick up the entire thing and use it as a big hammer. I think this idea is cool because it uses a very old trope which has this noble and magical idea to it and just completely nullifies the purpose of it, which is super funny. Also, being able to wield this weapon like a hammer would only be possible if you had crazy strength. In my opinion, some cool abilities would be if he lifted his weapon and smashed it to the ground. If he hits you, you get stunned, but if he missed, it would get stuck for a very small amount of time, maybe half a second or a second, and while it's stuck, they gained either a shield or resistance that started diminishing quickly after you pulled it out. As well as a Darius Q-type ability where he swings the weapon and if he hits you with the stone end of it, you get slowed. But if he hits you with the inner sword part of it, it does slightly more damage and applies a bleed. Overall, this character seems very funny and likable, while also being different from the usual tropes of nobility we're used to. I think it would be a perfect recipe for funny interactions between certain other champions, along with some cool skill expression potential that we haven't seen before. Passive, I don't know. Q, weapon swing. W, weapon smash. E, I don't know. R, I don't know. A character concept I've always really liked is the queen of an insect colony or species trope, which originates from the actual world of insects in real life, the main examples being ants and bees. The queens of these species will release pheromones that influence the behavior of the worker insects. If we go back to characters like Devora from Mortal Kombat, a lot of her kit is her commanding her swarm of insects to attack her enemy, along with her insect-like appendages that she attacks with herself. Also pulling inspiration from Vespiquen from the Pokemon universe, she's the queen of her hive and can command the swarms to either attack for her or defend for her, literally. Like the moves are called attack order and defend order. Considering these examples, I'd want to make the character have swarms of flying insects that she controls to fight with her. Her passive could be something like she builds up an amount of insects to use up to a certain cap, maybe while moving like Yasuo's resource. The insects would be venomous, and while venom can have many types of side effects, within the world of League she could have an attack that her insects swarms the enemy and slows them while dealing damage over time. And a part of her passive could be if she gets CC'd, her insects automatically retreat and help her, healing her over time or giving her resistances, and based off of how much she has built up, it would give her more or less. Of course, Malzahar has a kit that somewhat implements these types of powers. He's a bit different though because they're more like monsters from the void, while our character would be from the jungle of Kamungu or something. Passive, builds up amount of swarm. Q, uses insect appendages to attack. W, calls swarm back to defend. E, sends swarm to attack. R, I don't know. Looking through the champion list, I would try and think of a species that Riot has never based any champion off of. It's actually pretty hard, because not only is there not a crazy amount of options left in terms of a species that exists in the real world, if you think of one, it also has to be cool. But I did it. A frog warrior would be really cool. I personally think frogs are sick, and they have a lot of interesting physical attributes that you can easily implement in a champion. Namely, the long tongue and the emotionless eyes. I can totally imagine an edgy ninja or assassin frog champion, almost like Greninja, that would have a very serious and dark lore and wears lightweight clothing with cold colors and shades. All of these characteristics, but then he attacks people with a very long tongue and ends up looking kind of funny, so maybe no one takes him seriously or something. I'd imagine his abilities are a mix of Blitzcrank's hook, Zack's Q, and he would also be able to stick and climb terrain. Alternatively, frogs in the real world tend to be extremely colorful and vibrant if they're poisonous. So this character could also have a very different aesthetic in the sense where he's really colorful instead of dark, and maybe he's very bubbly and social. But he's kind of like a Mumu where whenever he gets close to people, they disappear from his life, when in reality, he'll end up touching their skin without realizing that he's poisonous, killing everyone he touches. I think this iteration of Frogman would also have a very funny interactions with other champions. Passive, build up second use of any ability by fighting, or change form to poisonous colorful frog. Q, spin tongue whip. W, Zack Q / Blitzhook combination. E, frog leap / stick to things. R, I don't know. Another character I'd like to see in League is a paper mage. The most popular example of this type of ability would be Conan from Naruto. Basically, having the ability to manipulate paper in any way, like using them to slice things with razor sharp edges or using them as some sort of shield by stacking them around people. Another great example of this exists within League with the papercraft skin line, which is why this idea, while really cool, most likely will never be seen in the form of an entire character, as it already exists in a way within the game. Trigger warning for this next one, I use images that might be scary to some viewers. I think a really cool character would be a scary demon, specifically an onryo. An onryo is a type of vengeful spirit from Japanese culture that is usually depicted as a woman who are wronged during their lifetime as a human and come back to the overworld and lash out their hatred on the living. This idea is referenced from the Ju-on horror franchise. The main antagonist named Kayako, so her look is exactly what I'm thinking of when talking about this. I'm not sure if it's too much for Riot to put something like this in the game, but when Fiddlesticks is this, with this cinematic, it seems fitting. Her abilities would definitely revolve around mental torment, since in the movies, the onryo can warp reality and cause hallucinations, as well as using her hair to attack people. By manipulating the length of her hair, she'd be able to wrap it around the enemy champions to immobilize them. Also, being able to summon spirits to fear enemy champions as well. This champion wouldn't be from the Shadow Isles. It would be a genuine evil spirit that exists within the more normal nations in Runeterra. I don't think she would have normal interactions or quotes, more just kind of a clicking noises like in the movies, and Rek'Sai. Passive, I don't know. Q, hair attack. W, hair wrap. E, hallucination fear. R, I don't know. What I would really like to see done is a character who can manipulate their own bones into ways to attack their opponent. I draw all inspiration from this from Kimimaro in Naruto. Just the idea that you can reach behind yourself and just draw a sword made from your own spine, or thrusting your arm forward and a massive spear shoots out of the palm of your hand would be so cool. I imagine a complete melee fighter, so one of their abilities would be instantly protruding sharp bone spikes all over their body, instantly stunning any enemy close enough. Also, since bones are somewhat brittle, it'd be an interesting mechanic where the bone weapon they were using in that moment had an indicator showing when it would break, and once it did, have a little animation to create a new one. Think like Graves or Jin reloading between autos, however this wouldn't happen as often. That mechanic would create a lot of skill expressive scenarios. Passive, bone break. Q, bone sword. W, bone spear. E, bone spikes. R, maybe a giant bone ribcage shield like a Susanoo? I really love the idea behind Gnar, a really cute little Yordle but can turn into a huge monster that is super strong with a different set of abilities. I originally thought of mirroring this idea with another Yordle, but I realized that would be boring. What I think would be really interesting is to have a very Seraphine tiered champion that is super cute but can turn into a really scary beast, so this character can attract a huge chunk of the player base. Finalizing our takes on champion concepts, I would very much mess with the Beastmaster character. The most notable example of this type of character is Pokemon Trainer from the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. Typically, it's a person who has trained 2 or 3 beasts to use in combat. The person doesn't usually fight anyone. They just taught the beasts how to do it. In terms of the League universe, I'd really like to see a person be able to call in an adolescent Vilemaw from the old Twisted Treeline map. I always thought that monster was super cool, and I think it'd be a really awesome callback. Also, I'd want to see different variations of the jungle camps, like maybe a Gromp that looks different to the one we have now, a new type of Crimson Raptor, and maybe an adolescent Rift Herald as well. Passive, no idea. Q, Raptor. W, Gromp. E, small Rift Herald. R, small Vilemaw. Lastly, I'd like to drop some cool ideas but not go too in depth because I'm not creative enough. The dude in the background of Set's splash art, he's so cool. The warrior fighting with Darius in the cinematic. Another one of Zed's students since Kain is one as well. And finally, the ethereal remitter card from Legends of Runeterra. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed, please hit the like button and let me know which concept you thought was the best. And if you like to watch live streams, I'd really appreciate if you followed my Twitch. I'm live most days of the week, so come say what's up. See ya!